Hello and welcome
Saturday.
Saturday to Labor of
Yay.
Love, live Saturday, the 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Hi, Tricia.
How are you?
Really good.
Did you have
How
a
are
good week?
you? Yes, everything was good weather and good. And, um, and I'm just enjoying life, and every day is something new.
Well, you had a great show yesterday with Mr. Leota.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was uplifting, and that show in particular, I just want to give people an hour where it's uplifting, where they can enjoy it, they can, just feel inspired and just put a smile on their face to start their weekend, and then and so I feel good about that. And then this show, I really we're diving into really important topics, and and each one is so different, but tonight, talking to Patricia is just, I have been looking forward to it so much because I just am so grateful to be able to talk to her, and hear her story and talk more about what happened on 9/11 and her personal story, because it changed the world. And
Yeah.
it, and it and it's just, it should never be forgotten, and there's a lot we have to still uncover. And for someone that was personally, her life was turned upside down, in the most horrific way. um I just think it's so important, to be able to spend time with her, so we've been
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
I was just in doing some research and prep for this, all of it's just amazing how it brings so much back that
Yeah.
you're you're it's you're kind of right there again I mean, I think we all at our age, in this generation,
Yes.
we all
Right.
know exactly where we were and what we were doing when this happened. And boy, it is amazing how fresh it was in pulling it back up today. Um,
Yeah. It really, really, really was. I told Patricia the same thing. I just started going down that rabbit hole. I mean, and just looking at all that stuff again. Woo! But I just want to talk briefly about Patricia. So she, her husband was murdered in the North Tower. There, John, he died at 38. Patricia started her journey with other New Jersey moms, actually. They were known as the Jersey Girls, and she'll talk about that too. And one of the many things they were fighting for, to establish the 9/11 Commission. But she also now, I mean, she continues to advocate, um, persistently, for accountability and security through proposed congressional legislation and, ongoing 9/11 legal actions in the Southern District of New York, and the military proceedings held in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, against the remaining detainees there, which I don't, I'd like to hear what's going on there too.
Me too. Me
Um,
too.
and all of it deeply affects the 9/11 families, and all of and half truths don't do any good either. It just has to, be all of it. And so I'm, with great privilege and, gratitude, I'm just really grateful, and Tricia and I both are, to bring on Patricia. Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much for being
Hi.
with.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it.
Great
Oh
name.
my goodness. Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, I know. Patricia, Patricia. Gotta keep this straight. Well, first of all, I want to thank Norman. Norman, 9/11 Revisited. I interviewed, he was my 31st interview on Truth Teller Tales. So he was number 31 if you want to go back and look at it.
Lovely.
Um, and he's this man from South Africa, and he so wants the people in South Africa that around him to understand the truth. And
Mhm.
has been determined, to set the record straight, and to shout from the rooftops the truth of what happened here on 9/11. And so it amazes me that someone from South Africa, and I thought, well, heck, he's has nothing to gain or lose from saying anything
Exactly.
weird. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It
Um,
struck me that way too. And when I first started looking at Dr. Wood's work, I read her book and everything. Then I looked as the podcast started developing. I saw his work and it was so thorough, and he's from South Africa. And I'm like, you know what? It kind of made sense to me because they're removed from the emotional part of it. You know, I live in New York still. It's my backyard where it all happened. And we can't get away from it. And everybody has, you know, entrenched themselves in the official narrative because we were bombarded with it. And we still are to this day. And just to have someone like Norman from South Africa with a total, no real skin in the game.
Yeah.
But realizing the world is affected by what happened on 9/11. You know, it's like the cloud, it keeps expanding. And we all get encompassed by it in one way or another. And not for good reason.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yes, there's a lot to unravel and discover for sure. But I want to start with hearing your story. So take us back, you know, to when you and John met and kind of your journey together.
Okay. Well, we met in a disco, in a dance club. And, you know, I saw him from across the room. He saw me. I was with a girlfriend. He was with his buddy. And we danced. And we danced to Wishing Upon a Star. I can still remember. I know what I was wearing. I know what he was wearing. And, you know, he told his friend I was the one. And I told my girlfriend he was the one. We just knew. You know, not to say we didn't have our rough patches as everyone does, but there was always this connection from the get-go, and we built on it. And, you know, we had a son, and he was 11 at the time of my husband's death. They were best buddies. I used to call them Pete and Repeat. They were John and John Jr., but it was just funny to think of them that way because they were so much alike. My son looked like him, moved like him, just embodied him. And then this tragedy happened. And I was in nursing school. It was my day off from nursing school, 9/11. And I was actually I had a pair of socks in my hands and I was putting them together. And my husband called me, and he worked on the 105th floor of the first tower. That was Tower 1, it was called. It was the first tower that had been hit that day.
And before you keep going, so he worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, right?
Yes.
And had he worked his way, you know, was that a job that he had, you know, worked his way up to get?
Been working on Wall Street since he was 18. He was not silver spoon, as so many people think of, you know, terrible personalities attached to Wall Street people. He worked for Payne Webber when he first went to Wall Street, and he worked the back office, you know, doing accounting kind of work. But he always wanted to be on the trading floor. So he would get up super early to be with the traders and then go and do his job. So like 11 o'clock at night. So he'd be there at 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, get on the bus, get on the ferry back to Staten Island, and do it all again first thing in the morning. Because he just wanted to be a trader, and he wanted to absorb what they were doing all the time. And he read newspapers, you know, front to back, you know, the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, everything. So, I mean, he was a go-getter. And, you know, he was looked down upon for not being highly educated. Most of the bigger Wall Street firms, you know, want you to have all these degrees and come from the best of schools. So, I mean, he was actually on 9/11, he was putting himself still through school. But, he did the Series 7, which that's where you have to qualify to be a trader. You have to know so much information. And he did better than his bosses did on the exam. So
Wow.
I mean, he was bound and determined to be successful. And he was. So he had, been Payne Weber. He went to, now what is it? Daiwa Security. It was a Japanese firm. And then he was at Cantor Fitzgerald in that time frame. So he was 38 when he passed. So that was about 20 years worth of work to get to the place. And he was a senior vice president at Cantor.
Oh, wow. And so where was your home? Was it in New Jersey?
Yes, we lived in a bedroom community. It was Colts Neck. There were 140 Wall Street people who were killed down in that area, in that county that I lived in alone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you couldn't turn, or like I'd take my son to therapy and we'd go try doing a hibachi or something like that after the fact, right? Trying to take it down a notch, not be so sad and intense. And there would be sitting someone next to us talking about another 9/11 widow. And we were like, oh, we can't get away from this ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's just so constant.
So that's amazing that he was, one of the top people there and had worked his way up in his hard work and obviously wanted to provide for you and his son, John Jr., right?
It was the American dream. He was living the American dream. He epitomized the American. You work hard, you work harder, and you elevate everybody around you. And that's what he was about. He took care of his family, his extended family. We were always involved in trying to lift all boats, if you will. Right. The tide. If as we rise, you rise. That was kind of, we always had a car payment because somebody was always in need of a car. So when we finished our car payments, it was like, here, take this car because now you are in need to get back and forth to work or what have you. So we were always, doing those kinds of things. And it worked out well. We both felt the same, that you help where you can and if you can. And of course, we always thought he'd live a long life. I was in nursing school. I wanted to help my husband. My son was 11. So I could go to school during the day and try to, get a nursing degree and help him, take some of the burden off. You know what I mean? And that's where we were at. And we got to that. I don't know your relationships, but it was that sweet spot in life where you can look across at the room at your husband and he's looking back at you and saying, aren't we lucky? Look what we've attained here. We are good. So,
Oh my gosh, Patricia. So, and I hear you. That sweet spot. So tell me that morning. Do you remember that morning, even if it was just a normal day before?
Yeah, the night before he had been at school, my husband, John, and he got home at like 11. He was going to St. Peter's College in Jersey City to do finish his degree. So, and I was in nursing school. So I've got my books open. He just came in from school and we're chatting the end of the day up a little bit. And he's sitting on a chair. He's got his legs over the side. And I just see him start to doze off. And that, that was our last real conversation. I saw him get up in the morning. He got up every morning at 5 to get to Wall Street and be there early. And, I we say goodbye. I did notice what he was wearing. It was one of those things that, it was still Wall Street, summertime, casual. They wear khakis and a polo. Everybody does.
Yeah.
It's a uniform, So I just remember, he had the new shirt that his brother gave him on his birthday in July. It just registered with him. It was like a light green shirt. So going forward that morning, I am in the laundry room. I'm folding laundry. Had a pair of socks in my hands. I'd already taken my son to school. My son was just starting 6th grade. And so I had a pair of socks in my hands, and I was, folding them up together. And my husband called me. So I'm standing there in the laundry room, just feeling the warmth. Had a nice little window by the washer and dryer. And I was like, oh, it just feels like a really nice day outside. I could see it through the blinds. And he called, and I could tell that, like, the catch in his voice of worry. And sorry, it's 25 years and I still devolve into this mess.
Yeah, I totally understand.
He said, "Do you know what's going on?" And I said, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean what's going on? He says, turn on the television. So with that, I ran to the TV and turned it on. And he's telling, and I was like, oh my God, because I knew immediately that was his building, the building with the antenna on it, and we had just been there, my son and I, like 2 weeks before we'd met him in the city to go out to do something. So he said, we've already checked to see where the floor's filling up thick black like soot. It was just hard to breathe. So he said, we already tried to see if the rooftop doors were available that we could get out. They were locked. The elevators were all demolished. The staircases were all demolished. And these are young guys for the most part. So they had, I'm sure, got in there, tried to move rubble as best they could not. So, my husband's like, I don't think we're going to make it out of here, and he started sobbing, and I was so upset, and I tried to, I had to regroup because I'm like, I have to comfort him in this moment, his last moments, perhaps. Yes. So, I just said, my husband had such faith in God. He was the kind of guy who got up to the 7:00 mass on Sunday and he did his rosary. He did all of these things. I mean, he was such a devout person. And so I tried to comfort him by, telling him, if anyone was ready for this moment in their lives, you are. You're such a good man. And everybody loves you. We love you. Your son, our son loved him. And he just was sobbing. And not only was he devout, he was so full of life. For him to be at this place, I knew it was dire because he was so positive. So I don't know how the call ended because I know I was going into shock. I could feel my body. It was like something was zipping along my body and just numbing me out. Physically, I was just frozen. And I don't know how the call ended. I don't know if we just lost communication. I'm thinking that's what happened because I can't recall. And then the next thing I knew, my sister-in-law was sitting next to me in the house with me holding the phone still with the television on. And, she reaches over to hug me. And that's how that day began, And And then my house started getting flooded with people who realized that, this was dire. And also, while I was sitting there, I guess it was with my sister-in-law, I saw the first, it was actually the second tower, building 2, that started to tilt at the top. And I was like, what is going on? And then they went straight down in seconds. I had enough of an education in my life and curiosity to know this is not how buildings operate.
Yeah.
And I knew those buildings because my husband and I had the conversation after he was in the World Financial Center when he was with Daiwa Securities. So when he was moving over to Cantor Fitzgerald, that was in the World Trade Center. So we had both seen the 1993 bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said, are you sure this is the right thing to do? Are you sure you're going to be safe? And he reassured me, the buildings were, made more stable, and there was more lighting so people could, not get caught in the dark as they were in 93 in the stairwells because the lighting was so bad. And he was reassuring me, and he says, so much security. We do these practice drills where we evacuate the building. So he felt comfortable enough, to take the job and be in that environment. And, it still was always in the back of my mind, but you say, all right, they caught the bad guys back then. We're good to go, right? Our government's got this. Mm-hmm. So you hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I appreciate you telling that story so much, and I've not ever talked to somebody like you who had lost somebody there, and so this is just it hits hard for all of us in the chat and everything, and can't even imagine, cannot actually even fathom what you went through. And that phone call, it's not
I
imaginable.
can hear his voice. It's always with me.
Yeah.
And it's just so painful.
And so but
I feel it's a gift too. I do feel it's a gift.
Yes.
I feel like he knew I needed that, and he didn't have. It was a landline. When someone finally went to the train depot to pick up his car for me, there was his cell phone on the seat. It was kind of new days of cell phones.
Yeah.
So you didn't always remember to have it with you, So he called me from a landline, which, again, that's why I think we lost the connection. And
so when you're there and your sister-in-law was there, was that his sister?
No, it was my brother's wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when something like that happens to you, is your TV on all day watching it, or do you not want to even?
100%. I was willing him to crawl out of that rubble, and your mind goes all kinds of places. I'm like, all right, I'm in nursing school. If he comes out hurt, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to take care of him. Because that's what you do. Right. I was mentally preparing.
Yes.
To be there for him.
Yeah.
In whatever condition he came out.
Right. And then Patricia, you have your next biggest hurdle, which is having to talk to your son, obviously.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I had, people were flooding in my house, and I was like, I have to get my son. I need him. I need to know he's okay. Yeah. We need to be together.
Right.
So my girlfriend drove me to the school, and I saw the principal, but there were tons of people in the lobby of the school. It was and classes were changing. It was so crowded and crazy. And I saw the principal and I was like, I just walked over to her and I said, listen, I don't know how many people here have loved ones affected by this. I said, I just got off the phone with my husband. He was in the building. I need to get my son out of here before, you know, he hears it from other people.
Right.
I didn't want that to happen. So, you know.
How do you tell an 11-year-old that? I can't even imagine how you.
Well, I said, Dad, you tried to get out, but you couldn't get out.
Yeah.
It was the thing, the situation was so bad, he couldn't get out because otherwise he would have. He would have been there. He would have been there for you. He loved you so much, you know. And, you know, my son kind of compartmentalized it. I mean, he was terrified. He regressed emotionally and wanted to know who was going to protect us. You know, that's where he went. And, you know, of course, I was thinking, well, somebody should have been protecting us. What happened? That this happened on live television for all the world to see, this huge calamity. We're the biggest, the best at everything, apparently, right? Isn't that what we were all told?
Right.
And obviously we failed, right? We failed in some capacity or another. So, you know, he had regressed. I tried to make life for him as normal as I could. We still did baseball. We still did all the sporting events. I was the mom with the oranges and everything else for the team, you know, because I wanted him to try to remain a kid, you know, have a kid's life as best as I could make it. So, but, you know, it hit him later on much harder. And I won't go into it, but, you know, a lot of the kids did, you know, I wouldn't say a lot, but a lot tried to kill themselves. Some were successful, you know, because the world just collapsed.
Right.
And then there was all this push for war and all the dividedness, you know, you're with us or you're against us, all that crazy that happened. And it happened in my town too. I mean, when we started asking questions and going down to DC, I lived in a Republican town and people were not happy that we were counter to what the Bush administration was doing, which was not allowing us an investigation. I mean, if my husband had died in a car accident, I would have known more.
Yeah.
Not this immense event. And I always, you know, towards that end, I always thought Bush was only in office for 9 months. So you could point to Clinton for all, you know, why this happened. I didn't care. I don't care who.
Right. Yeah.
Who was to blame, but we needed to find out what happened. We wanted it fixed. I didn't want my son growing up feeling unsafe. I didn't want my friends and family to feel unsafe. I wanted everyone to be able to feel safer and go on to live fuller lives. Otherwise, my husband's life was in vain, right? His death.
Yes.
And
yeah. So, I mean, I can't imagine that uncertainty because it scared people who weren't even close and involved. I can't imagine an 11-year-old boy, if it was something so evil that would take out his dad, that it would cause such an immense fear, unimaginable. And so you know, were having to be the mom there and make sure he was okay during that time. And so I know that was your focus, obviously, for a long time. When did you get with the other Jersey girls, and when did you start?
It actually was very soon thereafter. There was a lawyer in town who kept on leaving messages at my house. You know, family was coming in every day, friends coming in every day, trying to console and be consoled. You know, there is that thing when you're suffering, everybody wants to know you're okay so they can be okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of a natural occurrence, whether you're ready for it or not, to be in that role. And so this lawyer kept on calling me, and I'm like, what does he want? You know, I'm just trying to wake up in the morning and process what was happening. And I knew of his name. I knew he coached basketball with my husband, with the little kids. You know, that much I knew. And so eventually, like, I don't know, 2 weeks later or so, I called him back, you know, because he was persistent. And he was saying, Patty, there's, I, you know, we had our exchange of condolences and all that. And he says, there's this legislation that has happened in DC that affects you. And I'm like, what are we talking about? You know, I had no idea what he was talking about. He goes, the airlines were in DC on 9/12, wanting Congress to block you from being able to sue them. And I was like,
wow.
What? I had no concept of this is where my life was going. So he said, I'm aware of another widow nearby. She's a lawyer. Maybe you should talk with her, and you guys should consider taking some kind of stance, meeting with your Congress people and seeing what is going on. And it was legislation against us, not for us. I mean, it did create the Victims Compensation Fund, but it was like an aside to protecting everybody else from lawsuits. I mean, the main thrust of it was block the lawsuits so that we didn't take down the airline industry, and in conjunction, therefore, the U.S. government, because that's how much was involved in that. If you sued them, you know, the repercussions of it.
Right.
So like, it wasn't thinking lawsuits or anything, you know what I mean? So, you know, eventually Kristen Breitweiser and I got together. She was a lawyer, the one that he was referring to. And her husband had worked for a fiduciary trust in the second tower. My husband was in the first tower. And so, you know, at first we're just like, you know, how old is your daughter? How old's your son? She had one child. I had one. Her daughter was 2.5 at the time. You know, she was taking her baby to speech therapy. She had some issues with that. And so it was more like we were just trying to get to know each other and console each other, you know, for what happened. And then, you know, we met with that attorney that had called. She and I had met with him, and he says, I'll let you use my lobby in my building, and you can have other family members come in, and maybe as a group, you know, you can start discussing amongst each other what's happening. And in the meantime, other family members, I didn't know. I had no idea who these people were. Knew my husband, like men in other companies knew my husband. And they were saying, I was 40. I was old, in consideration to most of the family ages. Now I was one of the old ones. So it's a young person's business. It just is. But it is. You have to have a lot of energy. So, you know, they were stopping over my house too and saying my sister-in-law is not doing well, or, you know, my friend is not doing well. Do you think you could talk to her? It was always a woman, because by and large, the people in the towers who were killed were the men. You know, yes, there were some women. But largely it was men supporting young families.
Right.
So that's what we did. And then, in talking to the women who would come over, and then I started having people come over on Sundays. So I'm like, I got to contain this to a place where I can expect this is what we're doing. I'm fairly functional myself, but I had enough people around me. Somebody would go get some bagels or something like that. And people would show up on Sundays with their little kids. All of us widows now with little ones.
Yeah.
It was beyond crazy and sad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Some of the little kids would be like, your husband's dead too. Do you have kids? Because my son would be at school maybe by this was 2 weeks later. And I'd be like, my son, he lost his daddy too. The kids were just like so out there and honest with you, it was like brutal.
Yeah. Well, before we go any further, I would like to share some photos. This is you and John.
Yeah, that was before our son. I think was before we were married. It was a Christmas. I can't remember because I'm wearing red. We're just sitting there with our families and sharing Christmas.
Beautiful.
That was in Florida. My mother and stepfather moved to Florida at one point, and we were down there visiting.
John's handsome.
Yeah. That
was your wedding day?
Yeah, we were married like 13 and a half years.
Yeah. That wonderful picture. Oh,
isn't that adorable?
Yes. John Jr.
Yeah, he was my husband's pride and joy as well as mine, but he just ate him up. He just ate him up.
I am so sure.
And this was the first, I think, anniversary at Ground Zero. There was nothing built. And they did a memorial of sorts, gave us roses. My son was making like a little tribute there. I kind of see my husband's picture in there next to like the yellow, in between the yellow and red rose there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's when he was born. He was in intensive care. He was sickly when he was born. Someone in the hospital gave him a Staph aureus infection. So he was in there for 21 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a rough start.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. The dating days.
Oh, that's so nice. It's the big hair we all had.
Yeah, we recognize the hair, don't we?
Oh my gosh.
You can tell the era. This was the first day we got him back home.
Oh.
The way you're looking at your husband there, that's beautiful.
I know. That's such a great picture.
Look what I did.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Love it.
The dating years.
Yes. And the couch is so that time too.
Did you not all have the gold drapes?
Yeah, that was my mother. Yeah, my mother-in-law's. Yep. Yep. That's where we were.
And everyone had that fireplace. I swear, when we share pictures with people, they all have pictures standing in front of a fireplace that looks just like that. That is such a great picture.
We all have that.
Yeah, exactly.
How old was John Jr. there?
I would say he was probably 7, 8, 7. I would say 6, 7, somewhere in there. Young, still young. Yeah.
Wonderful pictures. Oh, so cute, so wonderful, father.
And that little hand on his face.
Yes, and the way he's looking up. Oh my goodness.
Mashup.
Just too sweet. That's a great picture too.
Yeah, we were out to dinner, I think, with people from the business, with our families. Like, I don't know, it looks 12/11, so I guess it was a Christmas type holiday thing. We were getting together with others.
wonderful, wonderful pictures
Yeah.
and wonderful, wonderful memories, you know, eh, that ended just, you know, the you had to go through, the two of you went through, and
Mm.
so many other as well.
Yes, so many, so too
So
many, too many.
many, yes. And so as time went on here, you know, tell me, you know, as your journey went on and you were digging into things and you were looking
Mhm.
for, you fought for the, you know, 9/11 commission, but then, you know, I think what I remember you writing to me that fell short, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and so
Mhm.
you kept fighting. I mean, you've been fighting for this. Has it always been you and the group of ladies there?
We stayed through it through the commission's recommendations and all of that, and then we also wrote up critiques. There's an old website of ours that had thousands of questions, and we
Mhm.
estimated that maybe 30% were answered.
Wow.
Yeah. And then just recently, last year, I guess it was 20 years that the commission had been in existence. It was like a 20th anniversary. And Philip Zelikow, he was the executive director, and Chris Kojum, I think he was like the legal advisor to the commission. They were both like, yeah, it stood the test of time. I don't think
Wow.
there's a sentence we would change.
Ah,
Um,
that's insane.
Totally insane.
So
But
when did you
he's a historian. Zelikow is a historian. History is written by the historians, right?
That's right. Exactly. That's a
Guess
great
what?
point.
That's what he did. He
Yeah,
wrote the 9/11 history as the officials would like it to have been known as. Yeah.
exactly. As he was told to write it, I guess, right?
He
Um,
wrote it backwards. He wrote it out chapter by chapter, and then had the teams that were assigned to back it up what he had written. Like this, these are the areas you're going to look at, and these only. We tried to bring whistleblowers in. They weren't allowing. We got one in. It was early days. Sibel Edmonds. She had been a 9/11 FBI translator. She was in an FBI office, and she was uncovering all kinds of horror stories. So we brought her in, and after that, they wouldn't allow us to meet them unless they know exactly who was coming.
of course.
So they
And
limited
and I mean, but I mean, I mean, obviously, that's such a giant red flag
huge,
that if you're
huge.
right.
And then, they wouldn't, we wanted anyone who testified to, swear on an oath, that whole truth, nothing but the truth kind of thing. And they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't subpoena people for that were testifying. I mean, when you subpoena, you're also offering whistleblower protection by that subpoena, by issuing a subpoena,
Mhm.
because you're being commanded to attend and give testimony. Otherwise, it's all voluntary. And
Right.
therefore you have no protections. The other thing is, even when people did testify, they had FBI minders in the room with them to monitor what it was that they were telling. I mean,
Wow.
you couldn't ask for a worst case scenario as far as
Yeah.
how investigation was run.
And so with that, with all those red flags, Patty, you know, when did you start thinking that maybe this really wasn't at all what it was portrayed to be?
I kind of figured it wasn't on the day of, because
Really?
when the first tower that was tipping over, building 2, I was like, well, that's not how physics works. A body in motion will stay in motion unless
Right.
it's acted upon by some outside force.
Right.
to righten it up, and then falling in free fall in seconds, like a 7 to 10 seconds. Whereas I believe a building of those size, 110 stories, would have taken like 32 seconds in a pancake situation, which is what our government was telling us happened. There was no pancaking. You would have seen the layers of all the floors. Instead, there were these small debris piles down below. I mean, 2 and 3 stories, floors.
And so when did you meet up with people like Norman from South Africa that he's such a
It was I didn't, I mean, I had been following him, and meanwhile, my Kristen and the other women, they were trying to work on getting us properly, I guess, financially, the restitution that we were denied all this while. Yes, we got some monies, but they deducted our personal life insurance, our workman's comp, Social Security. They did so much in advance to reduce what it was that we received. So that's been unto itself.
I saw you were on with Norman when you talked about that. And so I do want to, just so that it's clear in people's mind, actually what happened. So can you just say that again?
Sure. Because of the airline stabilization bill, there was a fund created, and a victims compensation fund run by Ken Feinberg. Ken Feinberg is now known as the master of disaster. He oversees all government funds in major disasters.
Okay.
So he, I believe, used this 9/11 as his jumping off place. He said, oh, it was quite the honor, blah, 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 to do this. Well, he did everything in his capacity to reduce the amount of monies that we got as victims. And he corralled us into this, because we could have sued, but we were told by him and so many others that, especially like my husband, who was in the first building, ground victims were not usually even compensated. I was like, what are you talking about? Ground victims? Like, this is like talk I couldn't even fathom.
Right.
Usually airlines only pay out for people on planes and crazy stuff like that. And then, he would say, it's the only game in town. The window of opportunity is closing. So we were being threatened all the time with, make this decision now. And yet it has lasting implications on your life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so that was the other half of that airline stabilization bill. But meanwhile, the insurance companies were able to sue. All the building owners and companies themselves were able to sue. It's just they didn't want 3,000 plus family members suing and taking down the airlines and the government with it at that point in time. So, I used to call Ken Feinberg, like, he's a cross between carnival barker and snake oil salesman. He was vile. He was a vile creature to deal with.
Wow. And then, so explain again that you were given money, but things were taken out of your.
Yes. We were supposed to be fully compensated based upon our husband's salaries. And my husband made a great salary. He did. He worked his butt off for it too. And it wasn't even close. I mean, we were so undercompensated. It was ridiculous. And nobody cared. Nobody cared. Right. Congress went right along with it. Right along.
Explain how other things were taken out to
My husband and I, had our own life insurance. They deducted that. That's like seizure of assets. But people who didn't have life insurance weren't punished. They were compensated as I was. And actually, it was like something over $250,000 a year. There was no chart for you. My husband did well. There's no chart, so it was all arbitrary after that.
Oh, yeah.
Who decided this? And it was Ken Feinberg on his own, with the blessings of Congress and all these corporate entities and insurances as well, that we were undercompensated because that was the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a lifelong just disaster, and here's the thing. It maddens somebody like Tricia and myself who weren't at all involved with that. I just can't imagine Patty being
I
in your
remember my
situation.
insurance guy calling me. I hadn't called about my insurance. It just wasn't even. I let go a mortgage payment because I just wasn't doing bills. I wasn't doing anything. My head was not in that mode.
Yes.
So my insurance guy had called me and he says, I just want to tell you, we're not sure we're going to pay out your insurance. I was like, what? He says, well, it's terrorism. They're looking to block us from paying out.
Wow.
I was like, are you kidding me? And you think back at the time how much sacrifice that was to buy that insurance.
Of course. Yes.
And this is the end result. When you need it, you're being told that there's a good chance you're not going to get it. And so basically I didn't get it because they deducted it. I got paid it, but it was reduced from what I received.
Yeah.
And, money is an ugly conversation to have. But, I downsized I had to move out of my house. I couldn't afford it. The house my husband and I had built, we were living the American dream. We were working all the time towards our American dream, just like anybody else.
Right. Yes.
And literally, the rug was pulled out from underneath us, and so many more.
Yes. And I just have to skip for a minute and hear, how is your son?
He is, he was delayed by all of this. He went into he did sales jobs and things like that. He didn't go to college right away. He had a lot of learning disabilities going back to what you saw when he was in the hospital. He developed all kinds of issues with that from that time. And so school was a real struggle for him. So eventually I wanted, it was COVID. I said, why don't you reinvent yourself? This is the time. Why don't you do that? So we had been told way back when there was all this college help and everything for the victims. So I said, oh, John, I think we can get help, doing this. So, you'll be good to go. And I called and they were like, he missed the window. Because now there were so many sick responders. They expanded the program to help those people. But here I'm like, my son was one of the original kids that you were saying you wanted to help. And now you're going, sorry, not you. And then I had to call my son back because he had moved out to California to get away from the East Coast where it's always 9/11.
Right.
And I said, hon, I'm sorry, but nobody's going to help you with college. That's not an option anymore. They rescinded it. He suffered terribly and wasn't ready for college like other kids were, and but that was not part of the consideration. So anyway, that was just another piece of it. So he's doing well, not great.
Is he still out in California?
Yep. He comes back once in a while, and I of course I go out there to see him when I can. I do have a new partner, and he's great, but he's just had some health issues, heart attacks and whatnot. So, we're not traveling to go out there. And I just get this angst over my son. I need to connect more frequently. And right now I can't, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. PTSD that stays with you forever, I'm sure, with that. My gosh. Well, I appreciate you telling your story so much. I want to talk a little bit now too about some, the things that you've been talking about with Norman as well. And again, for people that are just tuning in, Norman is he had, I think, Hair Therapy has been posting his information, and Norman actually posted some too in the comments. And he's a fellow from South Africa that he was the 31st person that I interviewed. So you can go back and look at that. And he's just a fellow that really felt compelled to get to the bottom of what happened. He's not an American, and he's reached out to people like Patricia and connected us actually. So thank you for doing that, Norman. I appreciate it so much. So I want to talk about some of the things that, that he questions that he has brought up. And it happens to parallel to when I was a couple of years ago, just consuming all of the things that I felt like we had been lied to about. That's when I found Judy Wood.
right.
And who I know you're very familiar with because Norman really is very really puts her things out there as well.
Yes.
And so and I actually I've got her book, but which I got a couple years ago, because after I watched her lectures, I was pretty well convinced, and that's what I want to just show everybody to some of the resources that I looked at, so you can go down a couple of these rabbit holes yourself of information. And so I do want to share some of this. Before I do that, Tricia, do you have anything you want to ask Patricia before we switch gears with this?
No, I thought I would let her tell her story. I'm spinning with questions, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. I think you've got a good flow going, so I'll wait.
And I have to say, Norman is in the chat, and I just happened to look, and he wrote, Patricia is one of the strongest women I've met in my life.
That's sweet. And we've never met other than on a podcast.
Isn't that crazy how that goes?
It is.
Sure.
Connectivity to that degree is a wonderful thing. That we
it really is.
Like that.
Yes, and it really is, and I'm someone that's so far away, and then you get connected in that way. It's just, it's awesome. Well, I wanted to start out by showing Norman's his Rumble account, and let me go over here. If you go down, there's just so many videos that you can watch that he has, and there you are. But he talks about, just has so many great, and there's a short interview with Dr. Judy Wood. He also, this one's really, he just brings up so many different things, and he's constantly also on X.
He was 9/11 revisionist there on X.
Yes, that's right, and we'll make sure that that's all in the comments section too. But this one's just really short, so I just kind of wanted to start there, where he basically shows just where they show
767 crashing into the steel and concrete edifices of the Twin Towers, and yet somehow, defying all laws of physics, they don't crumple up, they don't slow down. They fuse right into the side of these massive skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Us independent researchers have pored over all of the available footage, frame by frame. And something is very wrong here.
Yeah. Something is very wrong here, for sure. And so there's a site on YouTube as well, that's 9/11 empirical evidence, and in this they do a lot of Judy Wood's information. And I just wanted to show, first of all, when it comes to the disintegration, that Judy Wood is the one who really believes there's direct energy weaponry used in this. And she believes also it's used for hurricanes and things like that. And there's so much information that you can look at that she has done. So much information. But just to start out, there's this one, when it just happened, everything basically disintegrated into dust, which
in
is
midair.
in midair. So let me see. So let me just show this. She shows this, and she shows, let me just say this. This is like trying to explain like what's happening in the world with like one sentence. She dives into so many layers, and this is just one small little thing, but she has so many layers of evidence. But I just want to show.
And a little bit into it, you'll see a piece falling down.
So she
this
shows
corner in front of it. That's the corner of Vesey Street and West Street.
And she'll circle it here, and she's showing evidence over and over again that pieces fell but then turned into dust as they were falling.
Right.
And it'll show a circle here in just a second.
Yeah, you see this like a stick. Keep watching it.
That you'll see it right in the middle, but it'll circle. Yep. So there's that, and so it's a part of the frame that fell, but just like almost everything else, as it's falling, it turns to dust.
In a minute, we're going to look down that intersection where this stuff should have landed. I have a faster.
And
so,
those,
but notice how all of this is trailing dust. That's not from a dirty windowsill.
Yeah, so that's just one. And then there's the one of the last little section that the spire is this one.
Now we're going to look from B1 and B2 positions as well as from C at what's referred to as the spire.
Basically, the one section that's
now, if that thing tipped over, it would take out a few blocks worth of buildings. How's it going to go straight down? You got a 700-foot hole in the ground dropping into? Okay, for argument's sake, let's pretend we do have a 700-foot hole we're going to drop it into. And you're saying that that's dust
so
that shook
one
off
section
it.
Called the spire that's there that didn't actually fall.
It's not dust gradually settling. If dust is that fine to hang in the air, it wouldn't be settled on it in that amount of time.
Yeah, and again, this is just one teeny tiny.
So we know it doesn't have much time at all for dust to settle on it.
So much information about this direct.
And right after that,
weaponry.
Here it is from a slightly different angle.
There's the piece on the right there that just stayed, and then that ends up going and just going into dust right there. Right, Patricia?
Yes, goes right into dust. And, you know, you didn't see any just explosions or light from the explosions that, you know, some have claimed would have been the thermite or the bombs going off in the buildings. You know, with thermite and thermate, which some argue happened, there would have been these great sparks. Think of like when you've seen people welding, how it all sparks off. You know, basically the whole building would have been like that had it been thermite or thermate. It would. Some claim it would have been like looking at the sun directly. That's how bright it would have been, and it, practically speaking, it would have taken 29 metric tons of wiring and detonations for that to have transpired in each building. Now, you know, one of the firefighters, Oriole Palmer, He was a battalion chief. He was in building 2, right below where the impact zones were. And he's up there telling his guys via the radio, I need 2 hoses and I can knock this out. The fire was that small. Now, this is an experienced fireman, battalion chief. And to my way of thinking, if he was in there, and there were 29,000 metric tons of wiring and detonation equipment necessary for thermite, just general detonation of these buildings, he would have seen something. He would have seen evidence of that as he was right below the impact area. And yeah, he's saying, no, bring up 2 hoses, and
right. Yeah.
There's 2 small fires. We can knock this out. He would have been like, oh, if he saw detonations, unexploded devices, he would have said, oh my God, everybody out.
Right. Yes, of course. Yes.
His guys were in these buildings. He himself would have said, everybody out. We're calling a mayday on this. We've got to get out of here. These buildings are going to blow up.
Right.
You know what I mean? But and then it was seconds later, that tower starts to fall on him.
Yes. And so I wanted to continue talking about that and for you to continue talking about that. But this was one of the segments on ABC where that happened right after, and they're saying, wow, it just,
where's the rubble?
Right. Just turned to dust.
It is hard to conceive, but 3 days ago, both World Trade Towers rose 1,362 feet into the sky. Visit those same towers today. At their tallest point, they rise maybe 100 feet above the street. And while it's true there are 6 floors below street level, now filled with debris, engineers at the firm that built the building's best guess to account for the missing 1,200 feet of material from each tower
1,200 feet.
Is that large portions simply vaporized into the dust that rained down on New Yorkers immediately after the collapse. It was that powerful.
Get out of here!
We're talking here about 43,600 windows, 600,000 square feet of glass, 200,000 tons of structural steel, 5 million square feet of gypsum, 6 acres of marble, and 425,000 cubic yards of concrete, turned in good part into a cloud, says environmental medical doctor Stephen Levin.
I was astonished at the degree to which solid materials were turned into pulverized dust as a consequence of that building collapse. I think it was striking.
The Environmental Protection Agency has been sampling the dust, and one specialist told ABC they believe the clouds that appeared immediately after the collapse were mostly gypsum dust from drywall, cement dust, and plaster, which can cause problems.
Cement dust is an irritant. Fine glass powder is also an irritating material.
The EPA did find spotty levels of asbestos. A sample on a police car turned out dangerous. Another sample a couple of blocks away, not dangerous. But
and it just keeps going on just a little bit there. But I have to say that in chat, for people also too that are watching on X, Norman, who is so he is so knowledgeable about all this. He is in the chat on Truth Teller Tales on Rumble, and he's talking to people and giving talking about Telegram and where he is on there and stories that can be posted and things like that. So he's great. We have to have Norman back on again, actually. But here's one thing that I just have to say personally about this, about the buildings and how they went down. So and I told this to Norman, because one person that Judy Wood talks about is Nikola Tesla, because she talks about him and John Hutchinson, and one other about people who developed this weaponry, and they didn't use it for bad. But this weaponry is out there, and I have always followed for several years. Walter Russell is his name. He was friends with Nikola Tesla. He also invented this weaponry, and I volunteered at his museum and at the place where he lived here in Virginia. And so I learned a lot about him and knew about that he also understood this type of energy weaponry. And one day when I was there volunteering, and the scientist that works there and knows about this, I had just watched Judy, and I said to the scientist, I said, would it be possible with the information and the knowledge that Walter Russell and people like Nikola Tesla knew that they could do, could you bring down a building and bring it down and it could turn to dust with what you're talking, with what the and things that you know that Walter Russell knew how to do? And he said, it could be done if you just had something the size of a cell phone and pushed a button and activated it. Yes, you could. And I was like, are you? And it just all and I was speechless as I am now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And and it's just, I hope that people will go look at Norman's stuff, look at the things online. I did want to show too, you can actually look at one of Judy's books. There's a website called the archive.org, and you can look at one of her books. Let me just share this.
The book is like $51, and it's a pictorial of what happened down there. She's done it at cost, basically.
Yes, and this one, The Journey of 9/11 Research by Judy, this is online. You could look at it online. But on her website, she has a website. It's drjudywood.com, and you can look at all of her things that she has as well. And yes, and purchase her book on Amazon. There's just a lot to look at and to really just see all the information that's out there. And I think too, that's the part of what you're saying, Patricia, is it's maddening enough, everything you've been through, but when you hear people, and I know this is what Norman talks about too, telling half truths. They're going part of the way, but they're not going all the way with full truth. And there are people, thank goodness, like you and Norman and other folks that are still out there wanting to get the entire truth out, right?
I mean, there's so much to 9/11, even beyond the buildings, but the buildings themselves. I mean, there should have been huge seismic data that resulted if these buildings had collapsed and or exploded, because the rubble still would be coming down. But the seismic data did not equate to 210-story buildings falling. And they weren't the only buildings that came down or were damaged that day.
Right.
There were 7 in the complex, and the 7th building went down at 5:20 that afternoon. No supposed plane involved, right? How did that happen? How did that? Okay. And then the debris piles left behind were so insignificant. And then if you look at the survivors that were left behind there was one stairwell, I believe it was in the first tower, and there were like 16 survivors, and they realized the building's falling down. They all kind of duck and try to, ball themselves up so they wouldn't get that hurt. But they're all thinking in their heads, this is probably it. This is how I'm going to die. And then the buildings collapse, and you can see the shock on some of the people who have described what happens afterwards. They're seeing daylight. They weren't crushed.
Right.
They weren't burnt. They weren't blown up.
Right.
Some they had broken ankles. Of course, they had inhaled a lot of the dust of the buildings. And not only the dust of buildings, I hate to say this, but all the interior contents, including the bodies of people.
Right. Turned to yep.
And there were 1,100 people who were dustified. My husband was never found. I mean, we're talking healthy young people at the top of the buildings. You would have thought that they would have been found, right? Top, bottom of the building, maybe not so much, right?
Right.
But they made sure, you know, that those people were justified and could not be found. There were, besides the 1,100 who were never found, there were 400 more people who were only identified through DNA. So that what was left behind had to be so microscopic. Like my one girlfriend, Mindy, what was left of her husband, what was like a round little piece of a bone, you know, a sliver of a bone. This is what was left. So that's 1,500 out of the 3,000.
Right.
It's bodies, full, healthy bodies. Mindy's husband was like 6 foot, 200 something pounds. My husband was like 190 pounds. Nothing left of them.
Yes.
Nothing.
Right.
And, you know, if the rubble had been down there, you know, you would have found intact bodies.
Of course.
If they were blown up, you would have found more bodies.
Right. Yes.
Disappeared.
Yes.
Into this enormous dust cloud.
Yes. Especially to your point, if it came down in just seconds, right? It came down in just seconds. If that is all that had happened, they would have just found piles of bodies, right?
And the other part that supports the dustification is the bathtub. Building 1 and 2 especially were inside this bathtub, which was built into the Hudson River. They were so frightened afterwards about little stubs of building that were left behind and how they were going to take them down, that they cabled them and gently brought them down because they were afraid of damaging the bathtub. Yet 210-story buildings and a whole complex of other buildings came down, and the bathtub was barely damaged.
Right. That I think Dr. Wood talks about that there was like a dam that would have broken, that was right there and would have flooded down. That would have flooded all of
Hurricane Sandy and whatnot. The downtown Manhattan was flooded. You could only imagine if the whole East River was, you know, and was allowed to get in there, the whole Hudson River, because you can see it from Wall Street, the Hudson River. And if it was damaged and the buildings were actually sunk into the river, that bathtub had been breached.
Broken. Right. It would have flooded all of down.
What flooded in.
Correct.
But afterwards, they felt compelled to bring in dirt, bring in water, because what does that do? It dampens down the continuous molecular disassociation of what's happening there. You couldn't have people observing these parts that were keep on crumbling from the reaction that was still ongoing.
Yes. Oh, that's a great point. Yes, they were still dustifying.
Yeah,
right?
There was a whole nother building that's hardly mentioned, Bankers Trust building, not part of this whole real complex that actually got destroyed. It got damaged. So they rebuilt it. But the building kept on dissembling from at a molecular level. They ended up having to take the whole building down
and completely rebuild it because it kept just disintegrating.
Wow.
I mean,
and then to top it off, they removed, because they didn't want you to see what was going on down there. The rubble of the pile. My husband was in that pile. I hate that. They moved all the debris. They used grapplers, put things in dump trucks, and took it to a landfill called Frischka Landfill in Staten Island. I mean, again, talk about insult to injury. They moved the dead to a landfill because they wanted to get rid of it. They didn't want the focus on it, what was happening there. So they defiled a whole forensic investigation.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, people in other countries, they find little graveyards of ancient people, and they're like dust. They're like brushing away, the dust to get to the bones and the fragments. No, we grappled them, we put them in dump trucks, and we brought them to a landfill.
Oh. I mean, the deception on top of the deception on top of the
It's
deception.
a crime on top of a crime is what I call
it is. Yes, that's a better way to put it. A crime on top of a crime on top of a crime on top of a crime of the worst caliber.
Wasn't the CEO not there that day?
Yes, his brother was there. Gary died apparently in the attacks as well that day. And Howard, he was a difficult person to deal with. He helped the Cantor Fitzgerald. I mean, immediately afterwards, he cut off paychecks and health insurance. That Friday, nothing. Done. So I was shocked and appalled, as anybody would be. My husband literally gave his life at the office, and this is how his employer treated him. Not to say he wasn't panicked. This is his company, right? I understand, that process was going through his head. So I was so upset by it. My neighbor worked at Morgan Stanley or something like that. She and her husband drove me down there, got a meeting with Howard somewhere around Ground Zero, and we met. And I said, Howard, I understand you lost your business. We lost our loved ones, as did you. I said, but you're going to lose your business entirely if you don't try to do the right thing by the families. No, people are coming to my home and saying, we're not doing business with you if you don't do the right thing by the families. And guess what? His company flourished because people did rally behind him, because he was doing the right things behind us. He extended our health insurance for 10 years, thank God, because I've had all kinds of cancers. And the partners contributed, I think, 25% of their profits for 5 years to the families. So, in the meantime, we didn't get the victims' compensation right away. That took years. So in the meantime, that helped keep us from being financially devastated. I still had to sell my house. We still had to do things like that, downsize, all those things that happen in a disaster.
It's just sad to hear that what I'm hearing is what he did wasn't because of compassion. It was because it was a way for him to have a future business as opposed to doing the right thing.
He was cajoled into doing it. I mean, would he have gotten there on his own? I don't know. But he also got to sue, the airlines. He got compensated for the building losses, all of those things. Plus, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I know my husband had to go through another insurance kind of thing with work, like a physical and everything else. And I probably had key man insurance. I don't begrudge him anything because you still have to pay for that, right? But he was well compensated and his company thrived afterwards. We were helped. We were not thriving, however.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a big, big difference in that, and everybody also thinks, oh, you got tons of money in charity. Well, the charities were bad. They just were. I mean, Red Cross did not give out all its money.
You know more about what Red Cross really did.
They handed me an urn, a a pre-made urn with some kind of dirt in it. When I went in to give them my DNA for my husband, I had to get DNA tested. So they gave me an urn, they gave me a flag, wanted to pat me on my little head and tell me, you've been taken care of.
You're kidding.
No.
And what's, Ellen, I don't know if you just caught what I caught about what Trump in the picture this week.
Yeah.
What is that?
The Red Cross, and because the Red Cross has been, as you know, there's really good people at the Red Cross, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, the woman that
really
helped,
good people
that was handling me cried with me, you know.
Yeah.
Those people are amazing.
She was doing a service. However, everybody was there on 9/11 because there were all these exercises around the planes, worldwide exercises, drills. They were all in place.
Very interesting. Yes, that's such a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's just
like,
really,
you know, and all these things hit you at different times, and yet you're being told, oh, go along with the war because, you know, it's patriotic. I'm like, but there's some stuff there's something wrong here. And it hit me right away. Even on the day of when the cameras went from the World Trade Center over to the Pentagon after it got hit, I was like inconsolable. I was like, I'm never going to see if my husband's crawling out of there. They're going to focus on the seat of government. And guess what? They went right back because the roof hadn't fallen down in the Pentagon yet. It didn't look as dramatic.
Yeah. Gotta have that shock value.
And the trauma was all in New York.
Yes. You know, that was so devastating on so many levels. It was a national, worldwide travesty. It was a horrible thing. It happened on 9/11, which we think that 9/11 actually has incredible meaning. And so it was a they wanted to have something bad happen on that day. And there's so many things, you know, that happened there. And I hope and pray, Patty, that you know this all starts to unravel as other things start to unravel. And I have to just say this to you, because I told you, Pat, that when I was just diving into everything that you could dive into of information, and one road was about near-death experiences, and it was right before my mom died, and I was able to be peaceful with her dying because I had seen so many near-death experiences. And
I watched those too.
I bet. And so
I do, because I want to know.
Yes.
I want to know that they're okay and they're still watching us. I go right there. I mean, it's comforting to me.
Yes.
It's comforting. I mean,
it is. And I believe it with all of my heart that he is absolutely that, because the soul can never be distinguished or destroyed, and our souls are intact. We just let go of that body, and he is watching John Jr. and you both every step of the way.
So. No, I do believe that. I mean, I've met a wonderful man, and we've been together now 12 years, and he understands that I still need to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's to his credit, because a lot of men would not want to share.
Right.
Basically, someone who has one foot in the grave and the other one in life with him. Right.
Yes. Right.
It does not feel good to me either to be like that for him. You know, that I'm not always 100% present, but I feel like we have to protect future generations from these types of weapons. And a lot of people don't realize, okay, you don't have a name for what the weapon was used down there. No, I don't. But I know that what the evidence speaks to. Yes. And it doesn't speak to anything conventional.
Yeah.
And we got to wrap our heads around that and say, not in our name, no more. I mean, they were in other nations What are we doing there? We've heard President Trump say that we have the great discombobulator. What does he mean by that? Is it one of these weapons that were used on 9/11? Are they even that much more powerful and destructive? I mean, is it any wonder we sell our used weaponry, our old weaponry all around the world? Why? Because I don't think we're concerned about people using those old weapons.
Right.
We've got this great stuff now where you don't want to get on our bad side.
Yeah.
And that's terrible.
Yeah.
And we've got to grow up and say, these moments in time like 9/11 and Epstein files and COVID, these are not our shining moments, and we need to understand them and take back our lives from those who are making these awful decisions. And literally
agree.
Killing people with basically no consequence. Yeah.
Yes, and it's maddening in every word of it is maddening, and I hope as part of all of this is bubbling to the surface that that we'll all be exposed, and thanks in part because of Norman, people like Norman and people like you, just doing
there's
such
so many
incredible
good people around the world.
So many good people.
I mean, I saw this video, and it was nobody said it was AI, so I'm going to go with it. That there was a gentleman caught on camera in a church, and he's stealing in the church stuff from the church. He pulls off a crucifix off the wall, and he gets blown backwards. So of course I see this on a video, and I'm like making comments. Well, I was hoping for something a little more spectacular. Maybe I wasn't specific enough. Perhaps we need to do this as a group. How about everyone on three? And I, had the little prayer hands. Let's ask for divine intervention for everyone, not just a chosen few. Everyone. I don't want to see anyone else's family walk in our shoes. That was always the impetus from the get-go, why we did what we did, left our homes. I mean, DC was a ghost town when we went there. I literally would quake in fear because half of me says this didn't happen the way we were told, and the other says, but what if there's more coming? And here I am in DC. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
It still is.
Where do you, so you've been at this for 25 years.
I had cancer in the middle there, a lot of cancers, and I'm still dealing with all of that. Life goes on, right?
In terms of like people being more aware, because I was clueless at 9/11. There's no way I ever thought it was my own government. I believed.
Who wanted to?
Yeah, who wanted to
believe that?
You're in your like people that you're around, and it's like it. What are you seeing? Are people really aware that something very wrong, or do they still?
They still want to live in their bubbles for the most part. And I get that. Like I said earlier before we started, was, people are working hard daily just to put food on the table for their families. They're looking at their shoes. They don't have time to look up and then look at a video or read a book on this. I get it. So this is why the ones who have the wherewithal need to help. Even if they don't come with us to agree, but if we're all working, even from different angles at this problem, this situation we've found ourselves in, those of us who have been awakened to the horrors,
right?
Then at some point we should meet at a crossroads, right? And we're like, oh, you too, you understand? What collectively, we should be able to do something good. I have a problem with some of the truth groups who want to just remain where they've been for 20 years. And just like the commission who said, oh, we think it went along swimmingly. We wouldn't change a sentence. And you're like, okay, you can be in that bubble and believe that, but the rest of us want to help, because I and millions of others don't want to see you or your loved one hurt. That's it.
Exactly. And that's the bottom line. And we want to live free lives and live our lives and do good for each other and
thrive and
yes,
and live in harmony as best we can.
That's right.
It's
Amen,
not ever,
Patricia.
it's never going to be perfect, but let's do better than we're doing, right? That's all we can ask. So this is why, I'm still here, and we should try to remember and honor the dead by uncovering all the lies and getting to that better place of understanding.
Agreed. I couldn't have said it better. This is a great place for us to end, because I could not agree with you more. And, I think, and I don't think, I know that God is going to rectify all of this, and it's divine, and it is going to happen. And that is always in my mind all of the time. And I have to tell you, this has been such an honor to spend time with you, and you're just so awesome to speak with us. And I'm so grateful. Thank you, Norman, for being in the chat, and for Hair Therapy for being the greatest moderator, and everybody that's there. And I'm just so grateful that there are people like you that are so strong and are continuing to fight and continuing to be able to see things and want to share things. And that's what's going to help move this ball forward. Though it's taken way too long, but I just admire you so much, and we all do. And we just appreciate all.
I appreciate you being there too, and in this place with us. I mean, we have to reach out and gather more with us, those who are willing, and just say there is a group of us trying to do the right thing. Not everybody's going to come with you, and that's okay, because that's just the way it is right now.
Yeah,
but let's move this ball forward. Let's get to a place of understanding and take back, instead of letting other people decide for us what's right or wrong.
Right. Yes, exactly.
We don't want you doing this outside interventionist type thing and hurting millions of people. I mean, the cost of 9/11 has been so tremendous. Not just in our little world or my life. It's expanded. I mean, there was something like, I believe, 140,000 troops who have suicided themselves as of from 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, trillions of dollars in our treasure that we've given up. Never mind all those maimed and injured as a result, the millions killed in foreign lands. Do you think that makes us safer?
Yeah, no, of course not.
No. And then we had the military commissions, and there's still I believe it's 7 guys left in there. I think it's 7. Anywho, they cost like $40 million a year each to house there. What are you doing?
Yeah,
they should have been handled in American courts. We've done it before. Ramzi Youssef was in charge of the 93 bombing, supposedly. Should have been prosecuted here on soil. We would be done with it. So many of the courts have said this is a failure. Why is it a failure? Because you offshored our justice.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, Patty, that I mean, there's so many layers to this crime, as you said, as we've said about before. It's mind bending.
Yeah, and if you look at who even benefited, I mean, it's just insane that way.
It is, and But there are people like, thank God, there are people like you that are out there still fighting the fight and talking to people like us, and hopefully these little podcasts can spread and grow, and hope people can then share this who are watching this, and we just appreciate you so much, all that you're doing,
Appreciate you as well.
all of your time, and I hopefully will be able to have you back on when maybe there's good news at some point where we get some, but please stay in touch and
ask for that divine intervention.
yes, exactly.
Because I don't think we're gonna do this on our own.
No, I agree, but I think that's coming. So thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. I appreciate it so
Tricia,
much.
did you have anything else, Tricia?
I was just I've been trying to keep up because Norm has been putting so many awesome links in the chat, and I know that's going to disappear after we aren't live anymore. So I'm trying to capture that and put them in the comments.
Oh, go ahead, do that. That's important.
And hair therapy has been great. It's been a great mod. Thank you, hair therapy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patricia. You were, I can't even describe how brave I think you are.
More questions, just let me know.
A lot, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. I really wanted.
I know, but I get so emotional too. Something I do need you guys.
Of course you do. Of course. Oh my goodness.
Be on track.
Think about what you're doing for your son when he is ready with questions later and can process, and maybe
I'm writing a memoir just for him.
Oh,
it's not going to be a publication kind of thing, because I also want him to remember, because only I can tell him what our lives were like before.
Yes.
And I don't, so much is lost to the horror of that day, that I want him to know the good things, how our lives went, and the fun things that we did as a family and who we were as a family. So I'm writing a memoir so that he has that.
Awesome. What a gift. That's such a gift. Well, thank you, Patricia, so much for being with us and for all you're doing. And
I wish I could get a hug.
I know. Someday maybe we will. And I'm just so grateful for you and everybody who was watching on X. We appreciate you so much. And those of you in the chat and people watching on the Truth Teller Tales channel on Rumble, if you could give us a subscription or a follow or whatever it is, that would help us get shows like this out there. I mean, this is what, whenever we do shows like this, I'm like, God, so many people need to see this. So if you can all share this, that would be fantastic. But thank you so much, Tricia, and I
thank
just
you for doing great work. Thank you.
All right, take care. Have a great weekend. All right, take care.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.